Hello and welcome to Unholy Vibes. It's me, your boy, Alex, your one and only host of your favorite horror podcast, and this episode will mark the end of season 1 of Unholy Vibes. So bear with me as the next few months I gather tons of new, great, true horror stories from listeners just like you. I've got quite a few lined up, ready to go. So if you need your horror fix, just start back on episode 1 of Unholy Vibes and dive deep into the lore. Also, just real quick, I wanted to thank everyone that has listened so far. You've been wonderful. I appreciate your feedback and your insight and your curiosity about my guests and their stories. So thank you. Thank you to all my guests that have come on the show. Thank you to all the listeners, whether you've been here since day one or you're brand new to this episode. Thank you. Be sure to reach out to me, as I always say. Reach out to me. I want more. I have an insatiable appetite for the spooky stuff. So reach out to me on Instagram, TikTok, at unholyvibespod, or email unholyvibespod@gmail.com. Anyway, on to today's episode. Today, things will be a little bit different. Today, things will be unlike any other episode we've done. Today's episode, I will be telling you a story. This story has been submitted to me anonymously. I actually know the people involved in this story, and I know why they don't want to share who they are and come on and tell it themselves. So for the sake of their peace of mind, I'll be using fake names, and I hope you enjoy. A couple years ago, a buddy of mine, Steve, moved into a new house. And the house is not new, it's new to him. And it was built in, I think, the 60s. Which, for me, if it's before 1970s, I ain't living in it. The likelihood of a haunting just goes up once you go pre-1970 for some reason. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So Steve moves into this new home with his family, his wife, Lisa, and their kids. They finally get settled in. They're getting to know their neighbors, their surroundings, their area. And Steve and I, we communicate a lot. We're pretty good buddies. He, after about a year, maybe a year and a half of living in this house, give or take, timeline doesn't necessarily matter there at the beginning, but at about the year mark of them living in this house, they started to experience some spooky things. And believe me when I tell you, I've talked with Steve and his wife, Lisa, about this very in depth. And I've tried to disprove or at least approach with a skeptical and practical eye. Because while I want to believe everything, I have to for you guys, right? So Steve tells me one day that late at night, while he's awake, playing video games or watching shows in his basement, he hears banging above his head. And this noise is so aggressive that he thinks someone's trying to break into his house. Really loud knocking and banging. So scared and alarmed, he grabs his gun and runs upstairs, and no one's there. No one's at the door. No one's in their front yard. No one's inside, other than his family, obviously. Where did this knocking come from? He can't tell. Doesn't come back that night. He thinks, well, maybe it was this, maybe it was that. Could have been a multitude of things. Next day, boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. It was actually always in threes. Boom, boom, boom. Really loud, aggressive knocking. Coming from the walls, the ceiling, under the floorboards. Where is it? He texts his wife, who's upstairs in their bedroom watching a show, and says, Lisa, do you hear that? She says, hear what? She's not hearing anything, but he continues to hear this loud banging. This continues for months, off and on, and it will happen randomly. And the knocking always seems to move. It's never quite in the same spot. They check their AC, their furnace, anything that could be mechanical and making this noise randomly in the middle of the night. And keep in mind, this is only happening in the late night. They can't find anything. They check to see if there's animals living in their walls or something, but nothing. They check inside, outside. They can't find anything. So they just deal with it. Around the time this was all going on, Steve and Lisa had some new neighbors that had moved in right next door. They got to know their new neighbors, a husband and wife, and their kids. And Lisa becomes besties with the neighbor wife. Let's call her Jessica. So Lisa and Jessica become besties. They're hanging out. They really get along. Their kids like each other. They start to do play dates. They babysit each other's kids. Just normal stuff like that when you become besties with someone new. Steve and Lisa's oldest child at the time was between 2.5 and 3, I believe. Apologies, I can't remember all the specific dates and ages during this story, but it's irrelevant. Steve and Lisa's oldest child is having a really hard time. They are throwing fits. They are attacking Steve and Lisa, violently attacking them, and randomly just going up to them and saying, "I hate you," and then walking off. Or, "I hope you die, mommy," and just walking off. Out of nowhere, their oldest child is acting super aggressive and super hateful, and they're really not sure what's going on. Well, the knocking continues in the walls, in the ceiling, in the roof, floorboards, anywhere, everywhere. One day, Lisa finally hears the knocking herself, and it startles her. Lisa texts Steve and says, "Did you hear that?" Because he's downstairs playing games, winding down. And he says, "You finally heard that?" She goes, "Yeah, what was that?" And he says, "That was the knocking and banging I've been telling you about for months. That's what it is. That's it." And for some reason, Lisa was just unable to hear until now. Can't tell you why. If you have any ideas or theories, hit me up. So they don't really know what to do. They kind of just live with it. And I know what some of you are thinking. Why didn't they sage the place? Why didn't they have someone bless it? I think they just wanted to not think about it. Out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. And that's just some people's way of dealing with it. Such is life. Well, this is where your boy Alex comes in. This is where I come in. I meet Steve and Lisa and their family for a birthday party. And their neighbor, Jessica, and her kids are at the birthday party. And I start chatting with her because, why not? And she mentions that she is moving, and where she's moving is about an hour, hour and a half away. So she and Lisa are really bummed because they are neighbor besties and they're sad to part ways. I don't think anything of it. A couple days go by and I am playing games online with Steve. And I asked him, I said, "Steve, has there been any of that knocking recently? You haven't really mentioned it recently." And Steve goes, "No, it's crazy. It just stopped. Out of nowhere, it literally just stopped suddenly." Oh, wow. Well, that's good, right? So we continue on. We don't really talk much more about it until St. Patrick's Day this year. St. Patrick's Day comes around and we were spending the weekend with Steve and Lisa and a bunch of friends. We were spending the weekend away just on a little retreat just to get away, and it just so happened to be St. Patrick's Day. But this comes up one of the nights over the long weekend we took. We all start telling scary stories because, I can't be around people and not incite the unholy vibes. That's just not who I am. I have to get people to tell their spooky stories. So we had some people that had never heard certain other spooky stories. We're just trying to share, collect them all, like Pokemon cards. And I tell Steve, I said, "Steve, you need to tell these guys about what's been going on at your house." So Steve starts telling the story of what's been going on at his house for the past year or so. And as he's telling the story, I have an epiphany. Something in my mind clicked. I leaned over and I looked at Lisa and I said, "Lisa, look at me." And she goes, "What?" "It was your friend." "What do you mean?" she says. I said again, "It was your friend. Your friend was doing that to you guys." And she was taken aback, a little bit shocked, a little bit scared, a little bit spooked. We'd already filled the room with unholy vibes. We had a dozen or so people there telling their scary stories for hours on end. The vibes are right. The mood's been set. And so I had this epiphany that Lisa's neighbor, Jessica, was the one causing these issues. And I know what you're thinking. What are you talking about? You crazy. Make it make sense. Okay, I will. See if this tracks. I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. I'd love to hear your insight. So I tell Lisa, I think your friend was the one causing these problems. And she says, Alex, don't. Literally, you're going to make me cry. I'm terrified right now. And I kind of laughed it off because I was really, originally I was being a little silly, but it started to track. It started to make more sense. And I said, think about it. Your oldest kid stopped having their fits and their hateful speech and aggressive nature, and the banging in the walls stopped about the same time, right? Yeah. Well, wasn't that around when your neighbor Jessica and her family moved? Gasp. It all clicked. Guys, listen, as I'm telling you this story, I'm sitting in a dark room all by myself. I'm house sitting right now. Fun fact. I turned all the lights off. Got to set the mood. Just retelling this, I know it may sound dramatic. It gives me the chills. It gives me the chills because it feels so real to me. We had this realization together. Lisa had to remove herself from the situation to process what I had just said to her. And I tell Steve, I say, Steve, hear me out. I think Jessica was cursing you or something. And he goes, what are you talking about? And I explain the timeline. When Jessica and her family moved, literally almost down to like the day, your oldest kid's fits stopped. They started acting quote unquote normal again for, a toddler. And the banging in the walls, it stopped then too, didn't it? Oh my gosh. Holy dude. Yeah, that kind of makes sense. Yeah, because in my heart of hearts, I just know it to be true. Don't ask me how, it just feels right. And to this day, I could be wrong. But wait, there is more. Stick around. Don't go anywhere. I'm just kidding. I'm going to continue telling right now. So, about 30 minutes go by. More people are telling their spooky stories to the crowd, to the group. I'm just enjoying myself. And Lisa comes back over across the room and she sits down in one of the lounge chairs next to me and she goes, Alex, I think you're right. To which I responded, yeah, I am right. I was so confident in it. Even though I just had the epiphany, I just felt so right to me. And again, I like to be a silly goose, so I'm just like acting overconfident. I'm like, yeah, no, duh. It makes perfectly good sense, which it does. And I go, why do you think I'm right now? And she goes, okay, I gave her some of my hair. You what? You what? You never give anyone your hair. What are you talking about? She says, last year at St. Patrick's Day, actually, just before, Jessica asked me for some of my hair. And I didn't think twice about it because she said it was for a leprechaun trap. What even is that? I've never heard of that before. That's some nonsense. So she explains a leprechaun trap being that she was going to tell her kids they could trap a leprechaun in this thing. And when they woke up on St. Patrick's Day, they would find some hair stuck in the trap. And Jessica would tell her kids it's because they did catch a leprechaun, but it cut its beard off and you're just left with some of the hair. I know there's a lot of weird holiday traditions out there, like Elf on the Shelf and other random nonsense like that, but I've never heard of doing a leprechaun trap for your kids. And I say to Lisa, why your hair? Why couldn't she use her own? Well, my hair has a little bit of red and orange in it because I have Irish blood in me. And I tell Lisa, you don't have a red hair on your head, friend. You are a milk chocolate brunette, and that's all there is to it. And she's like, well, sometimes there's more red and orange in my hair. And I said, maybe in the right lighting with the right filter, but there's no way. And she goes, yeah, I literally didn't think about it because we were besties. I just was trying to help her out with her kids. And I said, how much do you give her? And she's like, well, just like this much, like a lock. And I'm like, that's still a decent amount. Like, to me, you don't just give your hair to someone. I'm not even necessarily like, I believe that these things exist, right? I believe that there is Santeria, voodoo, and witchcraft and all of that, but I've never dealt with it one on one, right? So I'm still removed from this. There's a degree of separation from me and what's happening. But even I know, and many other people know, you just don't give your hair to someone. If a Wiccan heard that, they'd be like, dude, you goof. And I said to Lisa, okay, well, what else is there? And she goes, yeah, she did start getting into witchcraft and crystals and other things, which some of you may argue witchcraft can be good. Crystals are good. Yeah, but there's a flip side to everything, right? So that's neither here nor there. But Lisa made note of the change in Jessica's behavior. So the timelines line up, and now Jessica has some of Lisa's hair. Cool. And Steve tells me, yeah, we actually saw the leprechaun trap like months later. It was still there. Because at the time that we're coming to this epiphany, we're having this realization, this is months after Jessica has moved at this point. So anyway, sorry if my timeline is confusing. I hope this is making sense and I'm doing this story justice. But Lisa makes note, Jessica's behavior has been changing and these crazy things have been happening. And when they moved, everything stopped and went back to normal. So we're all adequately scared in the moment and trying to grasp everything that's going on. And I tell them, I say, hey, listen, this is not my area of expertise, but if there were any witches listening, they would tell you, you better look around that house for some sort of totem, maybe. Make sure she didn't leave any items behind with you. Lisa tells me, dude, I'm like really upset now because Jessica used to watch our kids. She would house sit for us. She would stay at our house. She did leave random clothing items at our place, which was odd. And I just feel so disturbed right now. So I reminded her, just maybe go check your vents, like supply or return vents for your AC. Just check any weird hidden spot and see if she left anything for you. Now, I don't know why I thought about that and thought to say look for a totem, but I did. And then some more comes out here. Steve looks at me and goes, it's actually funny. We're not friends with Jessica and her family anymore after they moved. And I go, what happened? You guys were really tight at the time, right? They say, yeah, well, they kind of cut ties with us and told us they didn't want to be friends anymore because they got offended by some dumb meme we sent. And when he said what the meme was, I'm like, yeah, I mean, I could see that. But if that was the norm and you guys were sending those things pretty regularly, seems out of character for Jessica to just want to cut ties. But cut ties she did. Jessica told them they didn't want to talk to him anymore, didn't want to be their friends right after they moved. And I go, doesn't that seem suspicious? It's almost like it's an excuse to cut ties because she can't keep doing whatever she was doing. Maybe. Maybe not. And again, I know some of you are thinking, dude, you are just really reaching right now. Maybe. Things lined up so well, though, that it's hard to look at what's happening and not want to connect the dots, right? But wait, there's more. Not 2 days later, after we have this wild group epiphany, Lisa texts me and says, Jessica just reached out to me and says she wants to become friends again and repair our broken friendship. That's a little suspect timing. Maybe coincidence, sure. And I say, well, you need to tell me everything. A couple more weeks go by. I'm in Arizona visiting family like I do. I get a call from Lisa. She says, you're never gonna believe what just happened. She says, we have new neighbors that moved into Jessica's house and they were talking to us outside. We're just chatting with them, getting to know them. And they, out of nowhere, say, this is kind of a weird question, but has anyone ever died in this house that we live in? Huh? Why do you ask? Well, the new neighbors say, there's a lot of weird stuff going on in this house. And sometimes we hear banging in the middle of the night in our walls. What's that mean? Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe a witch or a witch in training started something, and when she left, maybe left some stuff behind. Maybe not something physical, but something more ethereal, spiritual, whatever. But the new neighbors are having some experiences. Nothing in Steve and Lisa's house anymore, but the new neighbors, they say that not only do they hear banging in their walls, but now they're seeing shadow figures in their house. They think they're catching stuff on camera they can't explain, and things are moving. Objects are moving. So this sparks my curiosity, obviously. As soon as I get back to Utah, I had to go and see for myself. I go see Steve and Lisa. We have a little barbecue. We involve the new neighbors. Very cool people, good kids. And Steve and I get a tour of their home, and nothing seemed off to me. It could have been that I hyped myself up, but also, if you've listened to even one other episode of Unholy Vibes, you'll know I'm not very sensitive to these things. So, get a tour. We record around the house a little bit, take some video, and nothing. I didn't expect anything to happen, honestly, just because it was still daytime and there's people actively looking for something. We're not going to get spooked. I just think that's not the right conditions. We ask the new homeowners some questions about their history and what they're actually experiencing, and they show some of the videos, and honestly, it's hard to say. Is there orbs or is it a bug? It's always hard to tell. Well, except when it's not. But with them, it was hard to tell. I can't say. I mean, there's a lot more factors. But the fact that they're experiencing some of the same things Steve and Lisa were in the house where the alleged witch used to live, it just seems suspect. Seems very sussy. Call it coincidence, call it happenstance, call it whatever. But you can't look at what's happened and deny that it doesn't make some sense, that it's not a little spooky. So, dear listeners, fellow spooky lovers, what do you think? What do you think happened here? I want your honest opinions. Is this all coincidence? Were my friends being haunted? Were they being cursed? Oh, wait, scratch that. Also, friends, listeners, just to mention, I did consult my favorite spiritual guru, my mom, the Witch of Wickenburg herself, with her crystal shop and her spiritual healings and meditations and knowledge of the spiritual realm and whatnot. She was very concerned after I told her about everything that had happened. And she really re-emphasized that Lisa and Steve should be looking for some hidden objects. That it could be outside too. Could be simple. A few sticks tied together, something, anything. I advise Lisa and Steve of my mom's advice, and they say, dude, you won't believe it. This is so crazy we didn't think about this. Jessica actually gave Lisa a pair of earrings with crystals in them. And I'm not sure if they were homemade or not. I forget, but I'll ask. And I go, dude, find him and destroy him. Get rid of him. Just in case. Just in case. After that, not much has really happened. There's no big updates on this whole debacle, this whole shebang. Yeah, there haven't been any major updates since then. But believe me, I'm keeping tabs on this. I ask them about it quite often. If they've heard anything new from the neighbors or if anything has happened at their place. To this date, at the time of publishing, I don't believe anything has changed. And I don't think they've found the pair of earrings. Every time we bring it up, I do remind them, go get rid of that. Could be bad. Buried in a graveyard, apparently. I don't know why that is a step that needs to be taken. But yeah, anyway, dear listener, my wonderful friends out there, what do you think? What is this? Is this all just coincidence? Is it happenstance? Or is it something more nefarious, ominous, malicious, something a little more spooky, supernatural, a little curse action, a little bit of witchcraft? Who knows? Who knows? It could be nothing. It could be nothing, and I could have just been putting thoughts into my friends' minds. But it just felt so right. It seemed so right when I had my epiphany and shared it with the world. And I even told them, I said, listen, it could be nothing, but the timelines, these things kind of line up and make sense. And then with the new neighbors having their issues, I'm inclined to believe something deeper is going on here. But please, I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear your opinions. Do you know any witchcraft? Do you ever have any curses happen to you? I did have someone else tell me about a time they were being cursed by someone, and it was a curse of jealousy. Now, I'm not super familiar with the curse world and how that all goes down and what it takes, but I know that they had their experience, and they said it was somewhat similar to what Lisa and Steve were experiencing, and that they had to go through some other steps to break it. I'm not really sure what those are. If you're interested, I can reach out, so just let me know. But please, DM me, email me. I want to know what you think about this. But that's it, guys. Whenever there's any new updates, I will update all of you, even if it's just a little bit. I will keep you guys up to date with the Lisa and Steve situation and the witch next door, or their old neighbor who was the witch next door, I should say. If you or anyone you know is an expert on these things, knows more about witchcraft and curses, or have been cursed yourself, or maybe if you've cursed someone, reach out. Talk to me. Tell me all about it. I want to know it. I want to know more. Anyway, everyone, thank you for listening. This has been the season finale of season 1 of Unholy Vibes. Don't worry, we'll be back soon. I have so much more coming. You guys are going to love what's in store. There are some stories coming our way that have genuinely shaken me to my core and kept me awake at night. So, look forward to that. Stick around. We'll see you soon. It'll be a couple months, but I promise you it'll be worth the wait. Be sure to follow Unholy Vibes Pod on Instagram and TikTok. Give us a like, give us a follow, give us a listen. Share the show with your friends on YouTube at Unholy Vibes Pod. Share it with them on Spotify, Apple Music, all your major podcast platforms. Unholy Vibes Pod is there for you and all of your spooky needs. So please reach out to me with any of your own personal spooky stories. If you're new here, I'm in it for the love of the game. Let's get more scary stories, good stories that have happened to you or a loved one. And with this season finale being an anonymous story that I've told, I hope you guys liked it. Please, I'm open to criticism, constructive criticism. Let me know how I did with telling someone else's story. I will try and do better in the future. Let me know if you have a story that you'd like to submit anonymously, if you're too shy to come on the show. I've had a few people ask about this, so this will be the first of more to come, anonymous storytelling. Be sure to leave us a review if you like the show. That's always appreciated. I just like seeing what people have to say about the show. And again, share with your friends, share with your family. If you know someone who likes spooky stuff, see if they like Unholy Vibes. I appreciate all of you. We're continuously growing, so I hope to bring you more and more great content soon in the coming months. Look forward to more episodes, and thank you. Remember, stay spooky. You guys are great. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon. This has been Unholy Vibes.